All right, everybody, welcome to Corona Geek 184. Today we talked about the merits of daily builds versus public builds. That was a very interesting discussion with a lot of opinions on the panel. And also Stephen Johnson demoed several different libraries for doing things in Lua that are interesting. One of them was calling a C library from Lua. The other was actually being able to load in a variety of image formats that you can't normally get access to with Corona. So that's interesting. Also, multi-threading support for desktop. And also, Sergey came on and talked about his recent updates to his text-to-speech plugin. Also, the fact that he's working on an NFC plugin and a Bluetooth plugin, which is super exciting. Also, Ed demoed his game development tool, which is now called Eat, and the framework and tools and templates and things that are going to be involved in that. We had an extensive talk on the tool itself and how it's evolved, but we also talked about some of the ideas for moving forward. So it's a great conversation. It's a little long. I am going to break it up into pieces, but I think you're going to enjoy it, so hang in there. And also, we talked about a bunch of the new blog announcements, things that have come out, like different plugins, AdMob, on-demand resources, and things like that. So great show today. I hope you enjoy it. Corona Geek 184.
No,
what build of Corona did you use?
The latest, not daily build, but the
Oh, you can't use a release build.
the release build. Yeah, that's
No,
what I
you
use.
can't. Never use a release build, man.
I
No.
always use the release build.
The release build is for people who are just trying Corona. Then you go right to daily builds. I
Okay.
don't even help people who don't use the daily builds. It's just, I know it sounds terrible, but here's my opinion. Like I'm going to tell you some other person's opinion. My opinion is that you should always use the daily build unless you really need some feature from an older build that's no longer working.
Right.
Yeah, but this tool will always be targeted at the daily build. I
Okay.
can't target the release build because it always falls behind, and I work in the present, and so it's very hard.
Very present.
Yeah, always on the very, very this, especially Apple TV, very bleeding edge. So you got to be right there.
Sure.
Well, Here's something to consider is that the product Corona used to be a paid product, and so it made sense to have a version that was public and a version that was private, right? And if you wanted access to the daily builds, then you would pay to have a subscription, and then you get access to those. Now that Corona is free, that model sort of makes sense because we have daily builds. And people may want to pick a specific release and know that that's the stable release. But these daily builds get battle tested all the time, right? When somebody reports a bug or whatever, we roll a fix into it, and then we roll it out in the next daily release, daily build. And so, so having a snapshot at some point is nice as a public release, but the time frame in which that happens could be really any point. We could take a daily build and make it a public release at any point. Now, I'm sure the engineering team, if they heard me say that, would fall out of their chairs. But conceptually, you get what I'm saying. So, So one of the things we were talking about the other day, I was talking to Roger about this. I was like, can we get to the point where our public release is on a shorter cycle, right? So that we're continually pushing out public releases, just like we push out daily builds, although they wouldn't be daily builds because then they'd just be daily builds. But you get the point.
Right. That'd be too much to package on a daily basis. But man, I tell you, invariably when people say, "Oh, it's not working," or something, just like I'll say it nicely. I'm saying it like a complaint, but people complain. They say something's not working, and then almost invariably you say, "Oh yeah, that's go get the latest version." That's a problem with the daily build because it's Apple made a change.
It's a snapshot. Yeah, it's a snapshot in time. And also
it's nice to know what features they're getting, but it's also a pain because you know that those things are broken now.
Yeah, and also from a daily build perspective, the most recent update was a big Java update, and that was something that basically there's a branch of the repo someplace that has all the code for that hasn't been merged into until all the rest of the code to be pushed out for the public, right? So maybe even in your daily builds, there's things that aren't turned on because they're not ready for prime time, or they're not feature complete, right? So we haven't announced that there's support for XYZ in something because it's still in development. And then but then at some point we have to call it and say, okay, now we're going to push this out. So everything needs to be exposed. We go through as much testing as we can possibly do on our own, and then we push that out as a public release, right? As a stable public release. And so even on the daily build level, I guess what I'm saying is that there are features that are in development that don't necessarily show up even in the daily build. So at some point we would even have to even with daily builds, we would have to kind of culminate all the changes into one release, make those, do the testing for that, and then push that out. Now that might be like one big major daily build that then becomes the public release, right? So just kind of keep that in mind, that it's one thing to push out sort of iterative daily builds, but there's also this notion that there's a lot of different pieces and parts in play that need to be worked out and then at some point announced as a stable release.
Yeah, no, I totally am I muted?
Yeah, you're on.
I totally understand that you could in theory, but you should not push out a daily build as the constant download button, release. That would be endangering Corona's, all you got to do is slip once and then people get a bad impression.
Right. Yeah, and that's the purpose of a public build, right? It's a public build, it's a stable, and you see that in any other venue, right? Even in open source software, you've got sort of the stable build, right? That version, and then you have the stuff that's in development, and that's just a normal.
The problem with mobile development, I wouldn't say, all of it really. The problem with our development environment, there's really no such thing as a stable build because everything's flying around. Corona's stable, but everything behind it is changing. OS 10 upgrades, iOS, Apple TV changes, blah, blah, blah. Anyway.
Right.
Aren't you supposed to do the intro?
Typically, I just use I never use daily build unless I have issues. And then I start to look for if that's been fixed or there's been an update to address that, and then I'll download a daily build and use that. But I almost always use stable builds until I have a problem.
You're not living a full life if you're not using daily builds.
Say again, please.
You're not living a full life if you're not using daily builds.
You're not living on the edge, buddy.
Well, I know. Well, that's the problem. I actually got bit in the butt once by a daily build where it fixed for a while. I was like all crazy about daily builds, and then I pushed something out, and there was a problem with it, and I didn't realize that obviously they're not guaranteed to be stable.
They're not. Yeah, they're definitely not guaranteed to be stable. Mike, aren't you primarily an OS 10 user?
Yes.
So you can have the best of both worlds. You can have multiple versions of Corona installed and run any version you want.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah, see, Windows guys like myself, we're stuck. We upgrade, and we get a bug. I got to uninstall and go back and get an old version. I can only have one version of Corona running at any one time on Windows.
Oh, really? I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I'm just saying. So your argument there about how you got bit shouldn't have been a problem. You should have had your old version still installed.
Yeah.
I feel what you're saying, though. I used to give people the advice, download the daily build, yes, so that you have the latest version when you first start your project. But once you've started in your development, don't change it unless you find that you need to update.
Yeah.
So it's sort of your premise, because otherwise, you're exactly right. People, what'll happen is changes on the back end could affect your application, and you're like, did I make the mistake, or is that a Corona change? What happened?
Right. Yeah, so for instance, when the tvOS first came out and it was in beta, and maybe it still is in beta, I don't know. But that was a daily build. I had to get that. I wanted to do it right away. I saw that it was a daily build, and it wasn't the stable version. So I downloaded that and utilized that because that's what I had to use. And, that's, so I kind of just base it on, if I have to use daily build, I do it because I need a feature that it's supporting that the stable build isn't.
Right.
Yeah, otherwise I use the stable build. That's kind of.
Yeah. The other thing is I answer questions pretty regularly in the forums. So invariably I find myself needing the daily build to be sure that I'm answering correctly.
Yeah. But yeah, I'll rerun that with the daily build.
It should work totally fine with the 2854 or later.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I should have mentioned that in the notes that it required the new, it uses the new relative swipe feature, which was in 2840 something, I think.
Well, here, let's talk about that in just a minute because we're kind of edging into today's topic. So before we get started, though, I want to mention a couple of things, and these are just kind of items from the blog, and most of us here probably have seen them, but I find it interesting that there's always one or two things that people haven't seen, no matter how attentive you are. And so I'm going to go over these just real quick for us. For our own general knowledge and for anybody who's new to the conversation. So, of course, you can always go and read the blog over at coronalabs.com/blog. You can find all kind of updates there about plugins that have come out, about apps that are being highlighted, about just general tutorials and all the different resources, of course, over at coronalabs.com. So a couple of highlights from the blog. There recently is a RevMob plugin, brand new RevMob plugin that's out. There's a blog post for that. There's also a blog post for the new Amazon IAP version 2 plugin that is available now. So if you have apps on the App Store, you will need to update by the end of the month to that to use that plugin because Amazon is making some changes that require you to update. So go check that out. Also, there's a new UTF-8 plugin, which I won't go into specifics because it's kind of a geeky sort of thing, but there's a new plugin over there for that. And then there's a new on-demand resources are available for if you're doing Apple TV development. So I know that several people have told us about their Apple TV applications, and I've come across a few just in the Facebook forum posts and stuff like that. So if you guys have an Apple TV app that you haven't told us about, I'm going to put a link in the show notes. I want you to fill out the form and tell us about it. But also go check out that on-demand resources blog post because that's going to be something that you're going to want to add to your app, especially if you want to pull in additional resources as people go to new levels and progress through your game. The other thing that I want to highlight there are several interviews and featured apps on the blog. So the first one is Taps. We talked with Taps down in Brazil, talked about their continuous integration and how they manage 200 plus apps on the App Store. They are a fairly sizable Corona shop. They've got 60 plus people in their on their payroll, and they've got designers and developers and project managers and business development people and just a whole just a whole gang of talented people down there. So that interview got a lot of traction. People really seemed to enjoy that. They were really interested in the topic. And if you also go to tapsgames.com, check out their website. They've got a great video on there. That's the full YouTube video that kind of shows behind the scenes in their organization. Also, there is a Fat Red Couch demo from GDC where Terry Schuessler goes through and shows off one of their interactive books. A lot of features were shown off in that. Go check that out. Also, Glitch Games is featured, and Climberia. I don't know if you guys have seen Climberia. It's a new game that's doing pretty well in some of the foreign markets, and it's kind of interesting. You are a pirate or a skeleton pirate who is trying to climb his way up through like these coral reefs and various structures, and you can't let go at any point. So you always have to keep a handhold on the structure or you fall and die. And it's pretty challenging. it's kind of interesting. They've sort of pre-generated some, I wouldn't say 3D assets, but they've pre-generated some assets and thrown them into the 2D space and done some interesting things with it. So go check out the blog post on that. And then hopefully maybe we'll get some time in here at the last to talk about Packet Ball, PKT Ball. That's a new release from LaserDog, and it's on Editor's Choice right now on the Apple App Store. It's in the new best new games category, and people are writing it up all over the place. And it's got some pretty interesting features. So go check it out. It's a free game. It's one of their first free games up to this point. They've been doing games that you have to buy, and they have a lot of rewarded aspects to it. And some interesting mechanics. So go check that out as well. It's PKT Ball, and there is a write-up on the blog, which also links to a devlog write-up that they did on their own site, where they kind of chronicle some of the different aspects and decisions that they made as they were developing the app. So go check that out as well. And then one last thing here, not Packet Ball. I already said that. One last thing here is that Pony Wolf has actually released a thing called Pony Font, which you can get on GitHub. There's I'll put a link in the show notes to it, but it's got some interesting effects that you can apply to text. And so if you're interested in sort of either A, using it, or B, picking apart the GitHub repo and seeing how they accomplished it, I'll put a link in the show notes and you can go check it out. Okay, that's all I have. Let's break this up into two parts. Basically, we've got Stephen, who wants to go through and demo some stuff and ask for some volunteers for testers, and then also Ed has some stuff to show, and he wants to ask for some volunteers for testers.
I'm laughing because it's like, let's break this up into two parts, and my imagination said after that Charles is going to say Stephen will talk about something, and then Ed will just talk and talk and talk for the rest of the show.
Whatever works. Okay, so I'm going to give the floor over to Stephen. Stephen, if you want to go ahead and screen share with us, and sure. tell us exactly what it is that you're doing. Give us some background, like if somebody hasn't heard of what you're up to before.
Okay, so that what Ed mentioned about the Mac is actually relevant because I didn't have one until just recently, and so I had been holding off on some plugins. But that's changed now, and so I've been going to town a bit on native things. The first one I'm not on the Mac now, so I can't show it. This is Mac only. But there's another Lua implementation called LuaJIT, which is it's used in Coronium, and it has a part called the FFI, which is the foreign function interface. So if you have, say, a DLL, you can hook right into it if certain functions are exposed. And you just have to make up a companion file that will give you the list of functions or structures or whatever that you can look up. And
Steve, can I stop you for a second? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Can you minimize you're showing us our camera in your view?
There.
There you go.
Okay. So that lets you use libraries straight from the DLL. And there was someone who, I forget his name, but he was porting into regular Lua. And he was making some progress for a while, and then basically time constraints ran afoul of those. But recently, apparently, Facebook took it over. And so far, they've got a Mac port going. And I've built this, and I can run the test file with it. And I've also managed to at least launch into a library called Torch, which is a neural network library that's been gaining some traction lately. There's neural network art on the web, and I suspect they use it to do all the, Facebook itself uses it to do all the image recognition and putting this is this person in this photo, etc. So I've got those two working. I would like to test this more generally. There's some libraries out there. There's a project called Lua Power, and there's some others that have different libraries bound. And if anybody has a compelling use case, I would like to throw this at some more things. Basically. So that's all.
So if this mix is made into a Corona plugin, you would be able to make plugins that work through this plugin for Corona.
Yeah, it's not a replacement for plugins by any means, but you could build plugins on top of it, I'm thinking. If you go to Lua Power, there's a whole list of these things.
But my understanding is that they target Linux, which Corona does not run on except Android, but it's not the same. So will it work on Android and will it work on Windows?
Not yet. At the moment, this will be Mac only.
But do they have plans on it, or they just don't care?
If you go to the issues, they actually mention this. The same guy who did the UTF-8 library here was trying to build it on Windows apparently, and they say most of our issues in Mac and Linux. We don't have any support yet, but we'll take pull requests.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'll have a go at trying to do this, because I did look up online about the particular problem, and others have solved it in other libraries. So we'll see if that's all a matter of time. And
can I give you some advice?
Sure.
Or input? How's that? Not so much advice. It sounds so pedantic. My input on this is that you're probably targeting the right audience anyway. I think there's a significant portion of the Corona community that is OS 10 users in the first place. So you're going to get, I think, the most bang for your buck simply by trying to find more ways to use it as it is instead of trying to solve the Windows problem.
Right. Well, there was a topic from Rune 7 about neural networks where I brought this up because Torch is what he was talking about, and if we could get some Torch stuff going, that'd be really cool.
Can you reiterate for me? I want to make sure I heard this. You do have a test case with this working now?
Yeah, it comes with a test case, so that works. And then I installed Torch on the Mac, and I at least got the initial libraries opening.
Have you tried to do, okay, is this all inside the simulator, or have you tried to do a desktop build?
I believe it was a desktop build, yes.
Okay, I just want to, make sure, because if you're like me, 99.9% of your work is in the simulator, and you go, oh yeah, I better do a build of that occasionally to make sure it works.
Right. Yeah, I've been going back and forth between them. So
that's really cool. I mean, that's out on the bleeding edge.
So I just for my own understanding, I want to make sure that I'm clear. So basically, what we're saying here is you can use this Lua FIFIB.
FFI Facebook, I think it's
okay. FIFIB.
Yeah.
To create libraries using C, or to create libraries using C that can be called from the Lua.
Right. Foreign function is a C function basically. So foreign function.
Okay. And what you're proposing is that you want to make or have made a plugin that would make this possible for Corona developers. Is that what I'm saying here?
I've got this FFIFB built and running in Mac. So, and I can load some stuff up with it. See if this is wrong.
Yeah, but you're not working on a plugin.
Yeah, and there's like this guy has assembled a huge list of these things. So there's all these libraries. I just need to start testing some of these, or other people do, and
I think for Charles's perspective, or in just people who are listening who are not clear on what this means, is to me, I always say this the wrong way. To me, currently what we've got is the ability to do. We can make our own custom plugins with Lua, which is great. It's quick to write, but not highly performant. Our second option is to write something using Enterprise and then we can start to take advantage of the native elements. But this is like Enterprise without the Enterprise heavy lifting. Instead, we'd use your plugin, and we would write our own C plugin or whatever that can do high-speed work, not Lua speed work, and just communicate via the plugin. I mean, this is really exciting.
This is not to replace Enterprise heavy lifting, because with Enterprise you can integrate natively all these functions if you have source code for them, or like the interface.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying this is a replacement for Enterprise, but for people who might still be like a little uncomfortable with Enterprise and who might find this easier to do or be more familiar with this, or
this is for people who don't want to pay for Enterprise and still get some of it. So yeah,
it's
there will be use cases for this.
I think this would be a complement, or I don't know if it's one or the other, but
well, also you might have.
You've been ejected for trying to replace Enterprise.
Well, also, there's a healthy population of developers who are C, and I'm assuming C++. Can you use C++ with this as well, or
you need to use the C style, but when you're writing your C++ code, you would do this thing called extern C before. Okay. So you would
can work with any language. It's just the binary that you're trying to bind should conform some interface that FFI can link to.
Right. So I think you were interested in Go. If there's a way to expose Go stuff to C, you could potentially do that.
Yeah, I think recent versions of Go can do that.
Right.
Wow.
So,
Stephen, you're always doing all these like bleeding edge technical, like makes my eyeballs hurt stuff.
This is super geeky. This is super geeky.
I don't mean to stop it, but it's cool. Really cool.
Okay. Any other questions? This one?
I keep trying to scroll your screen.
You said
I could just go to the website.
Go ahead.
You said you needed plugin testers, right? So tell us about that.
Well, so basically, I just need to start throwing this at libraries. So if anyone has a compelling use for say one of the libraries on this list, like FreeType, this is a font library. There have been requests for support for.
But it has to be on mobiles, not on the desktop.
Yeah.
So is there a
Can
form?
you show us a list of the created interfaces again?
Can you repeat that?
Can you show us the list of all the plugins, the Lua wrappers currently existing again?
Okay. So, the repository is called Lua Power, and this is just one of the big ones. This isn't a master repository, but he's got, say, Cairo, FreeType, Chipmunk. This is another physics library. Let's see, Expat, Speed Client, and I guess that's Facebook something. I think there's a better list somewhere. There we go.
I just pasted, I think it's the right one. Their website's got a packages list halfway down the page.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah. So here.
Oh, categorized too.
Yep. There's
quite that answers my question. A multi-threading package. See, now this would be cool.
Well, that's actually the next topic.
Yeah, Corona is single-threaded, but I wonder if there would be a way to incorporate a plugin that was able to do multi-threaded work. Sort of be, you could. I don't know. I'm thinking out loud. It just may not even make any sense after a few minutes. But
okay, so here's sort of an existential thought for you for just a second. In biology, two cells can pass DNA back and forth between each other. I don't remember what the term is called, right? But they're basically sharing pieces of code, and then sort of enhancing each other. Okay, and so I see this as same thing with programming languages, where you learn how to figure out how to do something in this case, in C, and then pull it into Lua, or be able to call to it from Lua, and I've seen this in other cases where you have languages that borrow or tie into each other and stuff like that. And it almost seems like the same kind of concept where these two entities are coming together, sharing pieces of information, right? And then which essentially code, and then creating this whole new thing that didn't exist before, which is really, really interesting.
I see in their list they have Win API, which is very cool to have. So if you go to their example page, so you can locate it in native OS APIs, yes, and scroll down, you can see that you can create a native Windows application. Scroll down a little bit more. So they look like this in Lua. This is cool, but it doesn't work on Windows.
Well,
I'm sorry. I wanted to, I was like, what? Works on OS 10, Windows interface. That's going to go for like red balloon.
Direct Windows and other OS calls is really, really cool.
Although I have to say, this is like Windows 3.1.
Oh.
I mean, it's beautiful. Out of the author out there, you're awesome, but still, it's just funny.
It's funny, yeah. The irony.
So Steve,
What Paul was saying is yeah, I mean, this is exciting because this really does, assuming that you're able to get this working as much as you want or as well as you want, it really would allow people who are on the bleeding edge, so Stephen and like one other person, to not myself included, to develop some really cool things using Corona.
Yeah. So I'm trying to understand this because I'm not like a hardcore coder. So are you saying, Stephen, that the plugin that you wrote, will interface with the things we see on this page that's up here? People have already written these other libraries. You would hook into these?
Yeah, ideally, I mean, the call for testers is to see where it might break down. And I should mention, I barely wrote any of this. I just did the little tie-in to Corona.
You still get credit for getting something to work with Corona.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, the idea to use, first and foremost, use stuff that's already out there, like all of this, and then opening it up to stuff you can write on your own, and then.
Right. So to answer Mike's question, the answer was yes, you could use these things, but also there's the ability to write whatever you want following the same kind of format or using the base library to interface with this.
Yeah.
Which really opens up.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, obviously for people on the cutting edge or people who need something very specific, that makes Corona, that much more accessible.
The reason I'm excited about this is not because you couldn't do this before. You could do this before. You could do it with native. But the thing that was different is what I'm getting out of this is you could distribute a DLL and not have to say, here's the code, build it into native, just use the DLL, get the interface, use it. That's what I'm hearing. So.
Right.
Are they called DLLs in OS 10?
The dilibs.
Okay. Because DLL, I thought that was a Windows thing, but anyways.
Yeah. I think they can be used on OS 10. I mean, I believe some games and stuff like that utilize them. So they're writing interfaces that, code that utilizes them.
Shared libraries are available on all operation systems. They're just called a little bit different.
Okay. Well, Stephen, was that the end of that, or did you have something else?
Well, there were a couple more that I wanted to show. I'll try to.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is what Ed was talking about earlier. I have this little bit of code just dropped into some random file, but it opens up a new thread, as you were saying, and it's iterating through it, and this is just printing and then wasting a little time and then printing something else. The time waste is just so you can see the threading going on. But So I'll load this, and then you can see it going. But all the while you're updating on here, so it's running in another thread.
What are exact advantages over native Lua
Well,
stuff? How it's called?
This is another one where I would like some test cases, because I would like to see, say, there was a thread recently where someone was trying to load large JSON files. And I'd like to see what it'll do with that. If you could still have a responsive interface while the main thread of Corona is.
Steven, could you please, for me, don't do that.
No. What?
Go back to the code. Line 39 to 53. Tell me what that code is doing in a nutshell.
Okay, so you're requiring the library, the proc library, and opening a function, and this will be run in its own worker thread.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear. I definitely have to get my hands on this. You have to send me this.
All right.
I want to know what the extent of the ability to create worker threads is. I mean, how many worker threads? Like, is there a limit? Or
you can set the number of workers. I've not tried that, pushing it to the limit, but
what?
We could do so.
You just lost points, man. Haven't tried pushing it to the limit.
And
your computer hasn't shut down, so you're not working hard enough.
I've done that with some other libraries. It requires some care, because this library does wait until everything's done before it quits. So you need to, I added some functions to let it test for that. I made a few modifications to the original, but this is actually written by someone close to the Lua team, so it's not even something on the fringe. It's just.
Does this? I can go read it, but does this have the ability to, handle producer consumer scenarios?
It has a couple of functions called send and receive. So you create a channel that they communicate through.
Oh.
I don't think I put it on this. No, I didn't put it in here, but the thing I was testing on, I'm trying to get it running right now on iOS. So the prints, instead of prints, I was making.
Wow, dude! If you could get this working on iOS, that would be awesome.
I was making display objects instead, and instead of using print, I was updating a text file. But you don't want to be updating display objects in another thread, so you send back.
The reason I'm excited about this, Stephen, and the rest of the guys here, is not because I see an application for this in games. Maybe, definitely, there's possibilities. But one of my pet loves is simulations. And I love writing simulations, but I also very much love using like Corona, or I used to use Torque, but they didn't really have the ability to do multi-threaded backs. And what I really needed was the ability to cast out multiple worker threads or something like that to get the simulation work done quicker. And this sounds like it's possible. That might open the door to doing simultaneous work on simulated whatever.
Right.
So Lua Proc uses P thread, POSIX thread under the hood, so it can be theoretically it can be compiled for iOS, Android, and Mac, but not Windows.
Windows, it's working on Windows. I took pthread Win32.
Okay.
And
so
well, dude, when you feel confident or comfortable sharing this, and I'm not pressuring you because I'm busy for the next couple of weeks anyways,
right.
But please don't forget to email me something. I would love to take a look at it and run it.
Okay. Well, these first two. What?
The main difference between this multi-threading and coroutines in Lua is that coroutines are not actually paralleled in different cores on the.
Right. This is actually using real threads. So
coroutines aren't really threaded; they're just
they're concurrent, but not multi-threaded by.
Not preemptive. So, Next is free image. This is an image loading library. And I mentioned this in the chat a little while ago that I've got it. I have it. Okay. This file here, screen selector, is a bitmap, and I have it loading in Corona. This is from a game by Niflus. So this is using some stuff that landed in a recent daily build, where you can load your own textures. So free image is a library for not just for loading textures, but for manipulating them and everything. And loading different file formats is the only thing I've really tried so far. But once again, call for testers. If anyone has an image-heavy use case, I would love to throw some at it.
Can you give us a for instance of like problems we might be able to solve with free
Corona
image?
has support for PNG and GPG, but this library has support for much more image formats.
Yeah, I've got a Targa here. GIF, I'm trying to figure out GIF because there's more to it than just loading an image, but it's not a very high level library. But
oh yeah, you posted something about this in the Slack. You were able to load a GIF?
I can load the GIF, but it doesn't have all the frames animating and all that. So I would load random frames out of it and display them. But
I would imagine you'd have to manually handle the frame changing.
No, you have to convert GIF into a sprite sheet and sprite animation data. So it can
I think it would be something you can build another library on top of. So I don't know if I'll go that far, but it's just to get the capacity of it there.
So what about? And I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you, but I just got to ask this question. One of the questions that I see all the time is, why doesn't Corona support vector graphics? You know, like SVG or AI, or I don't know if AI is actually vector graphic, but you know what I'm saying. Would this library allow people to load alternate formats and convert them?
It should load the format. It won't necessarily do the work, but that would be. See, forget what all these things are called, but.
Yeah, I'm just asking you all the hard questions.
There's a
huge, on the spot.
There's a huge list of formats here. I'm kind of everything's a bit scattered at the moment. So
I tell you what I really love is the clarity at which this is all coming through. I don't know how it is for you guys on your end, but with Google Hangouts, it used to be sort of pixely and
impossible to read code and see images.
Yeah. But as Stephen's like flipping through all this stuff and going and searching for things and codes being highlighted and all this kind of stuff, I'm like, I can totally see it. I'm like, oh yeah, this is beautiful.
Yeah, this is definitely better for sharing video.
Yeah.
Yeah, way better.
Here's the list of formats. I don't know if SVG counts as a format or if it's.
I wonder, is it all free to use in commercial applications?
Yeah, I think that's why it's called free image. It's just free and open source. And I chose this one as opposed to say ImageMagick or DevIL or something because it's used in another library and I want to make them work together. So, but anyone else is welcome to find those as well, and the more the merrier. So. You can change all the properties of images. You can get sub-images and paste sub-images. You can. I haven't kicked the tires on this thing, but.
Yeah, look, it seems pretty extensive.
Yeah.
I mean, and well documented. I mean, that's crazy.
Right. The last thing I want to mention, I don't have anything ready for it yet, but I've been finding this library, which is a numerics library, sort of like Torch, which I mentioned earlier. And it's basically so you can use your GPU CUDA or OpenCL or whatever and use the horsepower available for shaders to do massively parallel operations.
Right. You've been talking about this too.
Yeah, and the thing I want to do with it is make texture generators, among other things. So
And everything with you comes down to texture generators. And when I see it, everything comes down to me as general computing applications.
there are those too. Yeah, neural networks, image. There's a big list of what it has, but
This should be primarily desktop situations.
yeah, I think only Tegra and related.
Yeah. Only a few specialized Android devices have CUDA cores and related types of hardware.
Yeah. So if
Although
anyone
I tell you what, if you got your hands on a Tegra, that would be an awesome mobile application of using the CUDA cores or whatever they're called in the Tegra.
Yeah, if anyone has applications, possibly a little out there because it's not production ready yet, but I would love some testers with that.
I tell you what, if you managed to do an interesting demo that really did use the hardware in a Tegra, you could probably email NVIDIA and they'd probably be like, yeah, we love you. We will show your thing at our next conference because you rock. Because they're always looking for a way to say, look how awesome how many bazillion cores are on this mobile device. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So now, at the beginning, you had said something about testers. So were you speaking that you want beta testers for something that you're doing, or you just want people to, in general, go out and explore these things on their own and then maybe report back to their findings in the forums or something like that?
In the first two, well, it could be anywhere, but in the first two, they're about ready to go. The threading and the FFI,
mm-hmm.
they just need a little bit of stuff thrown at them, and then I'd probably feel confident submitting them.
Okay.
The image one, I've only barely begun testing it, but that could be concurrent with someone else using it. So, and then the same thing with that last one. I probably am not ready to use it myself yet, but it's getting there.
Now, Stephen, I'm highly interested, but I'm also highly unavailable. Sorry.
Okay. Well, if you haven't already, create a forum thread for it and send me the link, and I'll add it to the show notes, and then people can leave their feedback there. And is that the best place?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Okay. Cool. That's some interesting stuff. I'm kind of like Mike down there. I'm just going to watch and see what you guys come up with. I am I'm the guy. I'm the benefactor. I usually wait until all the heavy lifting is done, and then I come in and copy paste. Right. All right. So let's talk about game development tool, right? GDT.
Actually, it's going to get a rename.
Oh, it's
Can I also talk about my plugins?
Yeah. Go ahead, yeah, man. Before I jump in, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, because you've got some plugin updates of your own.
Yeah, I've been updating my plugins for text-to-speech, so it has less bugs now, hopefully 0. And QR Scanner plugin, so you can now use Flash on your device. And if somebody has iOS device with a Flash, like iPhone, please test it. I'm hopefully NFC plugin is coming soon. That would be very good. And I decided to make a Bluetooth plugin as well for Corona.
What was the last thing you decided to make? What was the last thing? I didn't catch that.
Bluetooth plugin.
I decided to make, and I didn't catch that.
I decided to make Bluetooth plugin.
I think he said Bluetooth.
Yeah, a Bluetooth. A Bluetooth plugin.
Sorry,
my sound coming out wrongly, or
just my pronunciation? There was kind of interference there.
Okay.
Internet solar flares.
Yeah, as Charles likes to refer to them, the internet solar flares.
Yeah.
Well, I love you. If you make any kind of Bluetooth anything, sir, please, I will definitely try that. Steven's like, Ed wouldn't try out my thing, but he's willing to try No. Well, yes. Okay. But Bluetooth, I will jump on that if you want people to test it. So, yes.
Yeah. Are you going to focus on specific aspects of Bluetooth, or are you going to try to generally support everything?
Not everything, of course. It's generally. So I will start with discovering and pairing. So, and then hopefully sending data back and forth, some data.
Yeah. That's all. That's all I would need to manage the connection. If I can get, like you said, discovering and pairing with data sending, I'm hooked.
There are lots of issues and how to say specifications to Bluetooth, but hopefully it will work good enough.
Just put a bug in your ear. In a testing point of view, the way I would use this is if you had discovering and pairing working, I would see if I could get like an Apple device paired with my Apple TV, and then send data back and forth. That's my primary usage interest for Bluetooth. Just putting a thought in your head.
So Apple TV has a Bluetooth. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. Well, we'll put.
That's super exciting, dude. I know it was just a short announcement, but that is also super exciting. So
Yeah, we'll put links in the show notes. I want to definitely link up to the plugins. And how long do you think before we'll see anything on the NFC?
NFC, I hope it will be finished by the end of this month. So Bluetooth, a couple months, 3 months, maybe something will show up.
Okay, so by Friday, got it.
release tomorrow. Got it.
Got it. As soon as we hang up, got it.
Already available in the future.
Nice. Okay, Ed. Game development tool, or EAT, or whatever we're calling it now.
I'm going to share my screen.
Yeah.
Okay, can you see my screen with the blue?
Yeah. Now,
Okay,
for all the home gamers, tell us what this is. Tell us where it's been, and tell us where we are today.
But that's exactly what I was going to do. So I'm going to give you a quick history tour and tell you where we're going to go this week and next week. For the longest time, in summary, what I have wanted to do is produce a unified tool set or a set of tools to do a lot of the heavy lifting for new developers and for experienced developers to take out the icky bits. And when I say icky bits, what I mean is like creating a starter framework with the interfaces I need, setting up the ads that I want to run, hooking up in-app purchases, giving me the rating button, all these little things that people trip over, the questions you see over and over in the forum. How do I set up AdMob? How do I hook up a rating button, et cetera, et cetera. So I've wanted to do that, but I have been faced with the dilemma that until recently, there was no way to produce with Corona a consistent desktop application, and you need it to be a desktop application because people need to be able to run it on their machines to generate this code. I had entertained, just a side note, I had entertained at one time and tried to make a mobile version of this concept, and it just failed miserably because technical issues. And the idea of like creating a game framework and mailing it to yourself was kind of silly. So backing up, desktop became a thing last year. Was it last year or was it the year before?
Recently?
Last year. I think it started last year. It's come into its own right. It's got most of the features that I need for this kind of thing. Yada, yada, yada. I started on the work. So what I'm showing you now is the first variant, the first iteration of this tool. I started off with this sort of pretty looking blue and yellow, and Mike told me that it didn't look professional enough. I'm totally good with that. This tool, a unified tool that included icon generators, code generators, framework generators, but it had some issues. The issues were that it was hard to use. The interface didn't make sense for desktop people. Very complicated. So I threw that away, and I went on to the next variant of this tool, which is one that is currently out in closed beta. Has been out for about a week now. And the closed beta is also a unified tool in which there are sub-tools like the icon generator and a semi-working particle generator. And then there are also project generators. Let me see in my experience mode. So within the project generators, you can create a new project. So let me go back there and do that again. Get rid of some of these. So you select create new project. And then in the closed beta, there's only a few. You can choose a basic project, which has no framework, or one of the two monetizers. And the monetizers are basically what I was describing earlier, which is a framework with all the interfaces you need and the options to set up monetization through ads and some other things. And the closed beta, it's worth noting for people who are listening, who are on the closed beta, doesn't have all the features I listed previously. For example, it doesn't have the rating buttons. It doesn't have social media hooks. Doesn't have any of that stuff. But that the intention was that it'd be in there. I just couldn't get it on in closed beta. So again, the purpose of this tool is to do the heavy lifting and get rid of the icky bits, make everybody's life easier. I see it as a service in a sense. It's a service-oriented tool that has a number of features and will evolve over time. So the dilemma that I've been facing is making a tool like this is super, super complicated. I think I said last week that, or I might have said this in the forums at both places, it's the kind of thing where you make a change in one place and there's ripples everywhere. Or the way I like to describe it is you pull a thread here and a bell rings over there. But really what happens is you pull one thread and 10 different bells ring, and then you go fix one bell and you get more threads, and before you know it, it's like crazy town. So further complicating things was the idea of doing a unified tool. Now you're hearing me sort of segue into something else. I've run into an issue both with my development and with the feedback that I've been getting from the testers that has told me that I have made a fundamental mistake. And the fundamental mistake that I have made is trying to do this as a unified toolkit. As much as I like the idea of a unified toolkit where you can download everything and update it live, I have done what most programmers will do, which is over-engineered, over-invested in the parts that I found to be cool and exciting, and to the, what's the word I'm seeking here? To the extent that I have neglected the purpose of this tool. The purpose of this tool, again, is to make life easier for the users, not to do cool things that I enjoy doing. So, having said that, we are currently in closed beta. The plan had been to do another week of closed beta, and then 1 week maybe after that, or say after the closed beta plus 1 week to go open beta. That's no longer going to happen. Instead, I'm going to cut short the closed beta. The closed beta users will continue to be able to use it in its current form. I'm not going to shut down the server or anything until I do the release, but I am changing what I am releasing. What I'm going to do instead is release discrete tools. Also, I should note that the tool up till now has been called GDT, Game Developers Toolkit for Corona SDK, a very long title. But it was suggested to me by my wife, and then folks in the different Corona Geek Hangouts have taken up the chant a little bit, I think. So it's going to be going out from now on as EAT. Ed's awesome toolkit or tool set, doesn't really matter. But it will be a set of tools, EAT frameworks, EAT tools, and EAT games. So EAT frameworks, which is what you're seeing on the screen now, is code that I've ripped out of GDT, and it does everything that I did in GDT for framework generation, except now this tool only does framework generation. So the purpose of this tool is to do one thing, is to do all that heavy lifting, set up build settings, set up config Lua, generate interfaces, hook up your ads. I'll take you on a quick tour here in a minute so it makes more sense. Pre-configure your entire framework. It doesn't do anything, however, to write your game. It doesn't have any hooks in there for games. Instead, what it will do is accept a drop-in game module, which you'll have to produce on your own, and I will show people how to do it, that as long as your module provides certain hooks, for example, a create function, a destroy function, a start function, and a few other functions, you can simply drop it into the framework, give the file a specific name, and the framework will hook up to it and run it. This framework also provides event-based communication so that you don't have to reach into the libraries that this thing has. You can simply communicate with them via events. Like, for example, sound effects events. If you want to make a sound, the framework has a sound library. You can tell it what to load and then tell it what to play, all via events. So there's no need for you to dig in and have cross-linkage and write a lot of complicated code. The idea here is that you can develop your code, which is what I always encourage people to do. Develop your game first. Forget about Composer. Forget about menus. Forget about all that stuff. Make the game first, get that working, and then drop it into this framework and do a little bit of extra hooking, and boom, then you can publish your game on your target platform. So before I proceed, are there any questions? Have I been confusing?
Okay, so let me just recap from my end and make sure I understand. So you had this tool, what we'll call GDT, the one that you showed us previously, the iteration of all the previous iterations.
Hey Charles, we're getting some kind of static.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. Let me. Is it any better?
Still getting a little bit. Can you sit back just a little bit?
How's that? Is it better?
I don't know what it is. Sorry.
Hold on.
Are you guys hearing that too?
Yeah. Try to reboot your mic.
Okay, how about that?
Yeah, that's good.
Is it better? Is it better?
Yes.
That's better.
Okay. So GDT, which was what we saw previously, the iteration of other previous iterations, was what you were working on. And as I understand it now, what you're doing is you're essentially saying, okay, I think that was a little too complicated for most people to sort of wrap their mind around. And I've simplified it to what we're seeing right now. And that's going to be, for today, that's going to be the final output of what you're working on.
That's not the final output. What that is first of several discrete tools. I'm not going to release it as a unified toolkit.
Okay.
Because that created too many development. It's the moving parts problem.
Right.
You have so many moving parts that you change something in one place and the tool breaks, and I can't have that. I can't have it be complicated. I want people to be able to pick this up and go, oh, I know what this tool is doing, and I know what purpose it serves.
Right. Right. Yeah. There is. That's a certain design philosophy, right? I've seen tools that, it only does exactly one thing. So all you need to do is drag your image onto it, drop it, and then it does what it's supposed to do, right? There's no user interface. All you have to do is just drag your image onto the tool. So that's sort of a design philosophy that some people adopt.
Exactly. However, I should say that although these will be discrete tools, they will share a common data store on your system. So if you have more than one of the tools, you can optionally choose to just use one of the tools. For example, just use the framework generator and never get the toolkit, which has the icon generator, the launch screen generator, and the other tools. But if you had them working in concert and we're running them on the same system, then they would know about each other and they'd be able to find each other's content, for example. So, I mean, I'm not getting rid of the working together bit. I'm just not forcing you to have it all in one place and have to understand everything at once.
Yeah,
I want to minimize the difficulty for people to pick this up.
Yeah, that makes sense. So let's say let's say you're Adobe and you're creating Photoshop. There are going to be some heavy users who want to do custom filters and custom whatever, I can't remember what the term is, but all these custom things so that they can create their own end product. And then there's going to be people who just want to do crop and people who want to do resize. And it would be great. And they have that now, where if you opt into the tool that suits your needs.
Exactly. Last week you said something that really rang really woke me up. And I can't exactly quote you, but to paraphrase you, you had said that you were excited purely by the fact that you could click a few times and generate an application that would just like work. It would just have everything in place, which is really what I was aiming for the whole time. And that took me back from it. And I said, I'm talking. I got all these exciting things and tools and things and download this and run it and never have to quit and servers and logins. And wait a minute, I think I missed the boat here. This is about solving a problem. What problem am I trying to solve? Making your code as quickly as possible. Okay, let's go back to the drawing board a little bit. How can I do that and take all the ugly bits out? So let me just run this so you can see what's going on. The framework generator, when you first run it, it's going to look something like this. I'm still working out the colors, and like these pink buttons up here for me while I'm doing my testing, they won't be there. But you come in here and you're going to choose the kind of project you want to make. I forgot, let me mention is, I'll say it again in a minute, but this is going to go out this week. It's going to be available to everybody this week. And what I'll do is I will let people get it, and then I will continue to update it over time, so people who have purchased it will be able to get updates during their update period. And I'll explain how that works in just a minute. But I'm going to be putting out, that's why I said the closed beta is ending essentially, and it's just going to go to open. Everybody's going to be able to get it. Call it early adopter, call it whatever you want, but I'm going to get it into I'm going to get a few of the rough edges off that are still there, and then I'm going to release it, because this is highly functional beyond, in fact, what the closed beta testers have available to them. And I just think it's time for people to start using it so I can see what the engagement's going to be like. Okay, so when you first launch this, it's going to come up with some kind of a screen. I haven't decided, but you'll go and say, for example, let's pretend one of these pink buttons says new project. They'll have some kind of concept like that. You want to create a new project or load an old one. If you were to create a new project, it'll come in here and you will be able to select the project type. And currently there's only 3: empty project, mobile monetizer, and the Apple TV monetizer. We'll do the mobile monetizer because it's a little more interesting than empty project. Within here, you have to make a few selections which will be locked down for the rest of this project generation. This is one thing that I made a mistake with in GDT, was I realized that having total freedom throughout the entire project, so let's say you edit and you set it to 768 by 1024, and then you're working in the tool and you go, no, I really want that to be 400 by 800. And I'm going to change that to landscape, and I'm going to go with the SSK instead of it's like all these things that were changing. And it made it impossible for me to cross-link all the dependencies in projects. So what you do is you say, initially, I want to create a project. I know that I want to make it for mobile. I want to do mobile monetization. Okay, that's the mobile monetizer. It suggests for you that you select a 640 by 960, which is a wonderful design resolution that can be made to work on almost all devices through scaling. So it suggests that, but you have the option to choose any particular design resolution you want. Then you choose whether or not you're going to be doing portrait or landscape. And somebody asked me this question out of the closed beta testers: why can't I do both? Yes, Corona supports both, but I have never seen a game that supports both. A game is either portrait or it's landscape.
Games, yes, but general applications, they do support both.
Right. This is a game development targeting tool. This tool, just to be very clear, Corona does apps, I do games. My first goal is to take all the icky bits out for people doing game development. Yes, this tool absolutely applies to application development. Again, why? Because it does all the heavy lifting on setting up making sure you've got your plugins set up correctly and you set the build settings all properly and all those parts. So absolutely, if you're making apps, you can use this tool with the one minor restriction. I'm going to limit you to generating something that is either landscape or portrait. By all means, at that point, you could go in and change build settings on your own. But for now, because this small detail made my life so hard, I'm limiting it to either portrait or landscape because it simplifies a bunch of coding decisions for me. Let me just back up and say, when I woke up when I got this sort of like bell ringing thing and I said, I'm doing the wrong thing here, I said, that's it. I'm excited to have this out in closed beta, but I'm getting a lot of inquiries is with regards to like, when is this going to be? How much is it going to cost? I said, I have to get this out. And in order to get it out, anything that I find sexy but has no benefit is not going in. And so I find it sexy to make landscape and portrait supported simultaneously, but it has no benefit to me, so I'm not putting it in at this point. So let's go ahead.
In design resolutions, also content scaling, which is Smart Pixel. Do you remember my config Lua?
I do remember your yes. What are you asking?
To integrate in your tool.
Oh, you want me to integrate your? That's a possibility. That is a possibility. Although I have to say that I am encouraging people to use a fixed scale. I've not yet. I mean, I absolutely respect everybody's methodology for dealing with how they code their games. But me personally, I've never found a need to have a config Lua that supports a multi-scale, or to have a config Lua that supports multiple resolutions and digs in and says, what device are you on? I've been able to solve all those problems by having one fixed design resolution and making a few small decision changes in my code to discover left, right, top, bottom, and account for those things like actual width and actual height. I prefer personally to go through the actual width.
Opposite, so I with fixed resolution I found lots of problems and uncomfortable coding. So yes, something like fixed positions for top left corner, for instance, is really good to have. So I use dynamic.
Let me. I want to. This is a critical thing that you're saying here is very important, and I knew that this was going to come up. And I'll say that 100% yes. I will definitely find a way to let people choose to go with a multi-scaling versus a fixed design resolution. But initially, I'm going to start with the fixed design resolution. Definitely not going to make people say, I'm not going to tell people this is the only right way to do things. What I'm telling people is I'm releasing this now with my best known methods. These are the things that I know best to work for me. And I think they'll work for you. However, certain things like what you're talking about here, I will add because I know that some people will be reluctant and say, no, I really need to do it the other way, Ed. I don't like your fixed resolution choice. So yeah, absolutely. I hear you. Let me just write a note here.
Yeah, I think in the interest of just getting it out the door, you have to sort of call it one way or the other and then iterate after that.
Yeah, everything right now is about getting a working, usable product out the door. And then everything after that is going to be about solving the problems that the community says to me, this is what I like, this is what I don't like, because I just can't know these things in a vacuum. And, even with my beta testers, it's just not enough people to give me a sense of what's right and wrong. So let me step you through the rest of this so that I don't lose you on this. Eventually, you're going to choose the options, your locked options, and you're going to confirm them. This is just the general flow. It's going to look a little different from this when it gets released, a little nicer. And then what will occur is then you'll be able to edit the rest of your project. So let me just redo that. So you confirm your selections, and you can see here that you can't choose any of the other options, and there will be more on the left side. Once you confirm, the other options open up. Now, we chose the mobile monetizer, so we can go over to the interfaces pane, and you'll get this little map that shows you what the interfaces are. Now, it doesn't look like much, but this is basically everything that a standard, like I did a study of dozens of games, and this is really all I've got. Forget about the launch screen, that's based on the images that you put in your folder. They have a splash screen where they give their title and their logo, and they say, this is made with XYZ, and I worked with so-and-so. And the purpose of the splash screen is to give them a chance to show off who they are, say hello, and to give them time to load assets and to do what I've seen all these monetizers do, which is the launch ad. So you go into this interface editor, you can click on the different interfaces. And so you start off on Splash, and then you've got this, let me show you one little detail. So one of the things that I fixed here is now resizing totally works. That is completely solved. It's now much more professional, Mike. So you can give me the thumbs up on that. But you click on your splash screen, and then you can configure it. So, for example, how long does the splash screen last? 5 seconds, 5,000 milliseconds. Is the user allowed to click through this, or do they have to watch it? Allow to click skip. Allow click to skip is set to false, so they can click all they want. It won't skip it. Now, that's usually the way I see it, but you know, if you want to allow them to click and skip the splash screen, cool. That's up to you. Do you want a launch ad? So a launch ad is like a Bungle or any one of these other ones. So Ad Buddies, AppLovin. So if you missed that, I've also figured out how to do like dynamic menus and stuff like that, which I really needed in the previous editor, but I just couldn't make it work. Now that I split this into a single tool, life got easier for me. So we enable ads, and then you simply go in here and you choose your provider. For example, let's choose Vungle. As soon as you choose Vungle, it's going to prompt you, and this part right now is incorrect. It will be refined based on your targets. Right now I'm just doing them all, but if you were only targeting Android, it would only request the Android ID. So we put in at this point you paste in or type in your Android ID and your iOS ID, and then you say, oh, no, wait. I didn't want to do that. I wanted Ad Buddies. No. Yeah, I do want Bungle. It doesn't forget anything. So I'm trying to make this as like super easy as possible. So at that point, we've already configured this 5-second launch screen or splash screen. It's going to play a Bungle ad when it launches, if it can get one. Of course, we know that sometimes Bungle doesn't work and you can't get the ad, but let's just assume it gets one. Let's go to the home screen. Well, we got a whole bunch of options on the home screen. Do we want to enable leaderboards? Yes. Okay, well, what's your iOS leaderboard ID? That's the only one, if I recall at this point. I'm still working on some of this, but Google Play doesn't have an ID. And Amazon, I'm not quite sure I'm going to support that out of the gate. Do you want to have a button for checking achievements? Yes. Do you want to have rate buttons? Okay. Well, if you do want to have rate buttons, you're going to have to give me some information so I can properly hook up the rate link to go to the right store and go to the right page. And if you're watching this and you say, no, Ed, you're missing some details, yes, I'm still coding some of this up. The point is point, click, paste, edit, whatever, generate. You've got a fully working app with leaderboards hooked up, rating buttons hooked up, social media sharing hooked up. Do you want to be able to do an in-app purchase for people to disable ads? Great monetization scheme. Put ads in the app, do an in-app purchase to turn them off. If you want to do that, you click this button and say, yes, I want to. This is the in-app purchase ID code for that. This thing will do everything else. The framework itself will hook you up. It'll talk to the store. It'll keep track of the fact that they bought it. It'll give you a restore button. It'll do all that stuff. Done. Do you want banner ads? Yes, I want a banner ad. Let's see, I want to use Corona ads this time. What's your Corona ads ID? Where do you want them to be? Top or bottom? Play screen. Do you want to have banner ads? There's going to be some more features on the play screen. I'm going to give you the ability to optionally configure score counters and some other details like that that are common between games, so that these HUDs can be put in place in advance so people don't need to do that part of the coding themselves. But right now, banner ads is the only option for the play screen. What ad provider do you want to use? And you also notice is between these different screens, you get different ad providers for the different kinds of ads, because in certain cases, some ad providers only provide banner ads. In other words, they only provide videos which are suitable for or videos or interstitials that are suitable for a launch ad, but not so much for an interstitial, or vice versa. So for example, a typical monetization route is you play, insta-death, you go to the game over screen, And then on the game over screen, you might have both banner ads and interstitials. And the interstitial is, you select interstitial. Let's say you want to do a Rev Mob interstitial, and you say, I want it to be every fifth time. In other words, they play, they die, they play, they die. Fifth time, get an ad. So on the fifth time, it does a Rev Mob interstitial, and you just got to drop in your ad ID. But you also want to have banner ads. You're really knocking this thing out with ads. So the interstitial gets done playing, and you say, yes, I want to have banner ads, and I want to use ad mob. So play the interstitial, and then when that's done, game over screen comes up, gives me my last score, and it's got the other buttons for like leaderboard and sharing and all that good stuff. And it shows you a banner ad. So I'm talking a lot here, but the point is point, click, paste, generate, fully functional, guaranteed to work framework every time. No misses. That's what I'm trying to achieve here. No misses. The only time it's not going to work is if you do something wrong when you build or you type in the wrong code. And by code, I mean like ID code. So, and then on top of that, of course, it still has all the add-ons, all the plugins, and I'm addressing the bits that my beta testers have called me on, which it says, yeah, Ed, but what about if I want it to be 30 frames per second or 60 frames per second? Or what if I want to add uses, let me look at my notes here. What if I want to add additional plist entries, or I want to add exclusions, or I want to add permissions and features for Android? All of those things will be here.
And those, of course, could be things that they could add on their own after they generate the project. But you just want to provide that for them as an easy point and click option.
Yeah, the key there is though they could add it on their own, but they could also make a mistake. Right. So if I can discover it and put it in the tool, and for example, let's say you choose a uses permission that also has to have a uses features associated with it for Android. I'll detect that and put it in there for you, so you don't like do half of it and go, "Why isn't it working?" I don't understand.
Yeah. I think the permissions thing is a big point of contention for a lot of people, and rightly so, because it's just convoluted. It's complicated. You don't really know when you're going to need something and when you're not.
Yeah, the beauty of this tool to me, I mean, I'm kudoing my own tool here, but I really want to point out is that I get to solve this for you guys one time. Yes, I'm going to make mistakes, but eventually I'll correct them, and then we'll all be able to do it right every time. And then people will be able to come to me and go, Ed, there's this plist feature that I really want to use, but I'm not sure how to use it. And then I can do the research, I can put it in, and then we all benefit. Everybody gets to have that option later. We go, yeah, plist. Like there's I can't even remember. There was this recent plist feature I saw that was like, I didn't even know you could put it in there. I'm like, that is really cool. I wish somebody had documented somewhere how to do that. But now you won't need that. And yeah, I'm not saying you won't need documentation, but I just want to take the icky bits out.
And also by making this as you said before, a discrete tool or a set of discrete tools, you can extend a particular tool without having to
Absolutely.
shoehorn the workflow into an overall sort of monolithic application. That
was the thing I was seeing is like every time I wanted to add a new thing, I had to look over here in this file and go make sure that the download thing was working. And it was like crazy. Oh, I forgot to mention, there's still going to be a server backend. I'm almost 100% sure no more logins. That's not how I'm going to handle it. The server is there for security purposes and some other like update date and details. But I'm getting rid of all of the stuff that people were complaining about, or they didn't even complain, but I can kind of tell they're like, I don't really like this. That's going away. This is going to be a download tool. You're going to have everything there at once. You'll be able to get updates. Just download the update and reinstall it, just like a traditional piece of software.
Excellent.
So, I've been talking a lot, but I didn't get to say the one part. I just want to reiterate. I'm on track to release this on Thursday or Friday at the latest this week. I'm still working out the question of how I'm going to monetize this. And so that's why I want to raise this here, because here's what I'm thinking. It's a service. This tool is basically a service. It's something that expands and grows over time. So it's going to get updates. I think the best way to do this is I'm going to go with a subscription model. So what I will do is let people subscribe, and I have a service called Gumroad. It's a site where you can buy subscriptions. And so you'll be able to buy a subscription. You'll get a code. You'll type the code in. It'll do a little security check. And then the tool itself, after that, you can just forget about it, and it will do all the work and make sure your subscription is still up to date. And it'll say, hey, your subscription's not up to date. You cancel or whatever, if you do.
Does it support PayPal?
Supports PayPal. You'll be able to buy with credit cards, PayPal, just about anything you can think of. I mean, not Bitcoin. I don't think they yet support Bitcoin. So, sorry. I'm also considering doing a Patreon variant. Now, I kind of want to do it. So the way this would work, it's a subscription thing too, but it's just another way for me to expose my. That sounds wrong. Expose myself to put my face out there. Because I've already got a Patreon account. And I've already got some patrons. In fact, the patrons, all my patrons, if you're listening, you'll be getting this tool. I'll do something for you. So, sign you up for like 6 months or something like that. So I'm thinking subscription, Patreon, and then I'm considering a one-time only pay option, but I may not do that. It's just really complicated. So I'm telling you guys this because I want people watching the video to know, but I also want to get feedback from you. You guys have asked me, other people have asked me, how much is it going to be? Okay, let me tell you this. 1 month subscription, 3 month subscription, whatever. What do you guys think it should cost for a tool like this?
I'm not going to throw out a number, but I will say that if you're on the last piece you're talking about a one-time purchase, I would suggest if you do a one-time purchase, that it's only good for a major version release. So if you want to buy version 2, you have to buy it again. If you want to buy version 3, you have to buy it again. That's a pretty standard model these days, right? You get dot releases for free, but major versions you have to buy over again. And if you are already a buyer of version 1, then you get version 2 at a reduced cost.
Yeah, and I can do that. Gumroad, I love Gumroad. I've been using it for a long time. You can get your customer list, and you can offer your existing customers like discount codes, so that would work perfectly.
Yeah.
The only trouble with doing that, that's a great idea. I'm not saying it's not, but I think, and you'll agree, I think you will agree, is that to do that properly, I would have to come up with an estimate of what version 1 would be, so that I can say, yes, you can buy it once. Version 1 has this, and we'll get this. Up to a certain extent, these are the features that you can look forward to. But after that, it's up to me. I might say, okay, at that point, it's now version 2.0.
Yeah, I don't know how. I don't know how.
When it becomes 2.0.
Yeah, I don't know how when somebody makes that distinction. Usually as a consumer of those types of products, you see that, hey, some big feature has been added, or like when you go to El Capitan, and now El Capitan is supported, right? It's a major effort to go to that next thing. Then that's usually a dot release. I mean,
those kind of things are sort of like
regulating, right?
Generating. They're like, it's almost like self-evident. At some point you go, this is definitely a new major version.
Yeah, and also keep in mind that you have the sole discretion to do that, right? So like if you're saying, hey, I've got version 1, it's out, and then a week later say, oh, I've got this great idea of how I can really overhaul that entire system and make it better. And then you're like, oh, I'm going to go ahead and just call that version 2. You have the sole discretion as to whether or not that's a paid upgrade or not. You can just say to everybody, hey, this is a major release, but considering that I just released a week ago, everybody who has already purchased gets it for free. All right, you could make that distinction.
Yeah, that's good. I like that idea a lot. Hey, I wanted to say, Charles, you give me a lot of good ideas. You guys all give me a lot of good ideas. But last week you said something too that really struck me, took me aback. And that
Man, if I'd have known I was saying good things last week, I'd have paid attention.
well, I told you then it was a good idea too. You asked me a question. You said, Ed, will I be able to make a project and like send it to somebody? You know, like the settings, right? Like here, now you can make it yourself. I set it up, you can make it. And the answer then was, well, sort of, but all these dependencies, yada, yada, yada. This solves that problem. Now, because people will have the project in the entirety, as long as they have the same version, like, you know, the same minor version update, then you're guaranteed you'll be able to export your projects and send them to people, and then they will be able to go, oh, and get the same settings as you without doing any of the clicking and pasting. So this will make collaboration easier.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm always open to taking credit for something I didn't do, but I don't think that I said that. It might have been just a conversation you had in your head. So
I might have been what I heard. You know, this is the problem, talking with people.
Yeah, you should credit yourself.
You may very well hear another thing.
Yeah, that's the mastermind effect for sure.
All right. Well, you guys have any questions? Because I talked a lot.
Yeah, I have.
Very excited and talked fast, but
yeah, Ed, I have a quick question, just to kind of recap to make sure I understand what you're saying, because you're showing us one specific tool here. But you did say that this is one tool. This will probably be the first tool that comes out. Then there'll be another tool where you have stuff like the icon generator.
Yes,
you have different functionality. And are you still considering doing the tool that really more fully lets people create games, like entire games?
Yes, absolutely. I'm sorry. Okay, so Thursday this week is the target for releasing this one in a functional, usable format. After that, people will be able to get updates for this tool. Next week, 1 week from Thursday, I will release the tool variant of this. So we have EAT frameworks, and we're going to have EAT tools. And EAT tools will have icon generator, launch image generator, initially just for mobile, while I figure out the recipe for like the things I need to be able to do to assemble the ones for Apple TV and for desktop, et cetera, et cetera. You know, it has to be within my capability to put it in. So I've got the one for mobile. I will release that. It will also have coming to it the new particle editor. And I'm very much, you see this bit right here on the side here with it says options button. Now that I figured this out, I finally have access to the ability to create useful tools that are like, you know, where the options change, which lets me create the particle editor for CBE and Prism. So that tool, EAT tools, is basically like a set of tools for doing utilities. It's like a bunch of utilities. So the answer to your question is yes, that will come out next week. And then by breaking these things up, I can take a breather and say, okay, what's the next thing? Remember last week when I said, this is another thing that struck me, is Charles asked me a question yet again. And I said, yeah, and I got to do that. I don't really want to do it, though. I really don't want to do this part, but it's like a prerequisite for the next step. Doing this, breaking it up like this, gets rid of those prerequisites for me. I can do some of that stuff internally, and I don't have to like release it as a micro tool. So you were talking just now. You said, Ed, are you going to release the one where we do like drag and drop, and I get to like build a game, like edit a game, visually edit? Absolutely, I'm going to do some kind of visual editor. I don't know what it's going to look like at this point, but by the fact that I've broken this up into separate tools, that gives me the latitude to make it look however I want, and I will be not so restricted as I was, which means I'll get there faster. So the answer is definitely yes. I'm super excited about the idea of a visual editor.
Yeah, and I think this makes sense from the standpoint, because I was worried. I mean, obviously that wasn't part of the beta that we were doing, obviously, because that's
it was way beyond what I could get done in the beta.
Right, and it's a major undertaking, obviously, but and then that allows you, because I almost feel like that might not even tie into these. You may find that has to be so complicated that you're generating everything within that, or most of it, or.
So you're saying something. I want to let you keep talking, but you're saying something that goes with what I just said about the pulling a string and a bell rings over here.
Yeah.
That was the problem. Let me put my screen up so you can actually see my video. Stop share. That was a problem. I had framework over here where you could manipulate it, and I had game over here, currently just template in the beta. But making little tweaks in the template forced changes in the framework. It was like this back and forth thing where I had to make everything synergistically like work. Too hard. So, and then I was like, well, then in order to make a visual editor, I have to learn all these things so that I don't break everything and it'll be done in 6 months. No, I can't do that. So I'm going to break it up into separate tools. It'll be done much sooner.
Yeah, I think that's smart, just from a getting it out to the public standpoint, and it still is all does what it needs to do. And
right, I could find out that the public's like, we could care less.
Yeah.
Hopefully not, but
yeah. I mean, I think obviously there's going to be a lot of people, a lot of the mid to low end users, which is probably the vast majority of Corona, individuals that are looking ultimately to that drag and drop type of or as close as you can get to something like that. That's going to be my guess.
Yeah.
That would, that's what I think people.
Have you guys heard about Level Director X for Corona?
Yeah. Are you saying it's like incorporating that as part of like a solution, or using it?
No, I just asking for your opinions because I just heard about it and never tried, and would like to hear your opinion on the tool.
I have not tried Level Director X.
And I've never even heard of it. So what can you give a kind of a brief description of what it's supposed to do or does, or?
Well, here is the link in the chat.
Yeah. Those guys have been around for a little while. There was an announcement. So I made my announcement like a couple days later. They made an announcement in the forums. This is how it always goes, right? I have this opinion is that you can have an idea and there's somebody else working on it too. So clearly these guys are working on something else. They already had a product. To be fair, this product is actually, I believe, a derivative of their prior product, or even is the prior product. I mean, my familiarity here is kind of a little bit hazy, but these guys existed. This is a tool for editing content. It does a bunch of interesting things. The question is for me is, no, there's no question. I'm not going to use it. I'm going to do my own thing, but yeah. Yeah, thanks a lot, Sergey. Here, I'm really trying to do an upsell on my tool here, and you're going to bring up somebody else's tool. You, sir, are fired.
Actually, that was an opportunity for you to say, well, this tool exists, but mine will be much more awesome because this and this.
I appreciate that, but you know what I don't like to do? I don't like to put down I can only do that by putting down their tool or saying that my tool is. I mean, I hear exactly what you're saying. I just don't like to do it.
Well, it's not a matter of putting them down. It's a matter of emphasizing features on your own tool, right?
Yeah.
Emphasizing.
I'll say that I think what I've seen of their tool, I haven't run it, it's exciting looking, interesting looking. However, I think you're going to be better served by going with me.
Yeah. Well, here, I think the real takeaway here is that there is plenty of opportunity, right? They may focus on a particular aspect of development, and then you may focus on a different aspect of development. So I think there's lots of, especially as you're breaking this tool into multiple, like you said, discrete tools.
Right.
You can focus on a particular thing, like resizing, generating the app icons. That's a very specific use case for a tool.
Or generating a framework. That tool doesn't generate a framework, so you can use my framework generator and their content generator and make them work together. Absolutely.
Right. So I'd say if you're like, hey, the level Director X is something I would use for XYZ, and then I have this other tool for this other thing, right? I mean,
I'm not going to tell people not to use it. If they see that excites them and that works for them, at the end of the day, it's whatever sparks your ability to make content and make games. Go for it. So, and you're still going to be able to use my stuff. I'm good with it. No, really. Good. I mean, you laugh, but you made the point there. It's perfect. Their tool is for making content, what I consider content, the game. It's for making like mechanics, that kind of thing. It's not necessarily for making interfaces or generating frameworks that have, in-app purchases and banner ads and all that stuff.
So we've got Eat framework, Eat tools. What's beyond that? Anything?
I don't want to commit to names beyond that. Probably Eat games.
Okay, Eat games.
Yeah. Or maybe Eat templates. I'm not sure. I like the thing because it sounds kind of like flippant, right? Like eat templates, You're like, what is that? But it sticks. I really like it because it sticks.
It's got a nice little hook to it. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, 1 week from today, Thursday is your target.
No, Thursday for sale. I've worked it out, man. I'm so excited because Gumroad does this thing with the code where you buy it and they send you this code. I'm like, oh, I really want to use that feature, but I'm not sure if I can figure it out. Figured it out.
Oh, yeah. Okay, good. Any reason why you didn't, just out of curiosity, why you didn't use something like Stripe?
So it goes to content protection. Also,
so Gumroad has more content protection built in for you automatically.
I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say that I could probably have done something with Stripe. It's just that I already have a Gumroad account and I already use them for my other stuff. So when I saw this, I could see it. And I said, I know I could do that. Half an hour later, when I finally sat down to test it, I had it working.
Okay.
Stripe. Again, remember how I said, I got to take the friction out. I got to get this thing out the door. It's all about getting out the door. Will I add Stripe on later as a purchasing option? Absolutely, maybe. Oh, did I say you're going to be able to download this tool for free and try it in a locked version? So that's the distribution model on this. Download it directly, and then it will be locked until you put your code in and you get your little thing unlocked.
Okay, well, one last suggestion is that when you say, next time you say 1 week from today, you have to hold your pinky finger to your face and say 1 week from today.
1 week from today.
All right, well, I'm looking forward to it. I like with this direction. I like where you're headed with this because I can totally appreciate the fact that, if you're trying to design an end-to-end workflow tool and you try to jam something in the middle of that, it really disrupts, makes it hard to introduce new features and make changes. So I like this idea.
It just became a mountain. And I'm just one guy, I'm just one guy.
The other thing that I like is that on the screen to screen to screen to screen sort of model, the user was continually having to reset their attention and refocus on that screen. Okay, now what options are on this screen? What options are on this screen? What options are on this screen? Whereas here, you've got everything is sort of standardized. You've got the tabs on the left. You have the input values or whatever on the right. You have the content in the middle, and it's a lot less to unpack as a user.
Right. This is basically the standard layout model from here on. Will be something like this. This is the beauty of it. I got to do it. I got to abstract away all that other crud where I was like, oh, I want to overlay. I want to do this thing flying in from the side. Go away. This just makes it usable.
I make a prediction that by the time you get done, you'll have a recreated Visual Studio.
I swear to God. I feel, this thing with the dynamically generated like menu buttons and pull downs and all that stuff. I feel like I'm creating a whole new environment. It's just like, I've seen it a million times, but I've never had to code it all myself.
Right. Yeah. You never really realized it was there as a consumer until you start doing it, and then you're like, oh, that's why they put that stuff there. Oh, okay.
1 week from today.
Hey, Ed, what your tool? Is there going to be like a beginner mode and experience mode? And
I got rid of all that. Everything's beginner mode.
Okay.
It's going to be aimed at, if I can read it, I can understand it. I'm minimizing the amount of information presented as much as possible. In fact, I might reduce, one of the things that I did find was visually not pleasing was like on the startup, there were so many different resolutions. I'm not so sure that's really necessary.
Yeah, that's actually one of the things that I didn't mention, and I don't think specifically in my first, when I sent you a big list, but just looking at that, I think as a beginner, one of the things I would say is I look at that as a beginner. If you say I've just started to understand and learn about Corona, I look at this and I go, what in the heck? What do I pick?
Yeah.
Do I stick with what you pick? Why would I pick one of these other ones?
So let me float an idea here, guys. I know we've been talking for a bit, but I got you on the horn. So let me float an idea. One of the ideas that I had was, I don't like this because it's like too many choices. It gets simpler when you go mobile or you go Apple. Apple TV is easy because there's I just want to give them a few choices. But when you do the empty project, I'm like, I pretty much got to give them all the choices they've got for the simulated things in the Corona simulator. I mean, it's what it comes down to. There's so many different resolutions. But going back to what Sergey and I were talking about, I'm in the camp of you can almost generally design for one resolution and adjust from there. And so I'm thinking what I will do, this is the idea I'm floating. I will minimize this to like 4 or 5 choices that are like the top choices that you always see, like the standard resolutions for iPhones and a couple of Android devices. And then if you want more, you can go to a settings page and add more options. And then they'll show up in the list. That way you can have what you want, but I don't have to present it to you when you run this tool.
You can add text fields into your custom width and height.
Yeah, you can add your own custom widths and heights.
Directly here.
That way the tool does whatever you need it to do.
Yeah, I mean, that's cool, I guess, but that seems way more advanced user. I still think...
Right. But the average user won't have to deal with that. Go ahead, continue.
What I was going to suggest is that you present, the 2 or 3 options or whatever the top typical things that you would do, and then maybe there's a button next to it or a little whatever that says, more, and then you can click that and you get all of these.
Yeah.
So it's like.
Oh, okay.
Then you don't have to
write that down. That's actually a good idea.
That's a psychology.
I say that like the other ideas weren't good. No, that is a good idea.
I mean, I think it's cool that if you give people the option to enter anything they want, because certainly there may be that case. So that would be super awesome. But I think to just say I'm going to give them 3 of these or 4 of them or whatever, whatever you feel makes the most sense, and then a little button that says more or whatever, and then you see all these.
That almost goes back to we've sort of talked about this before on previous shows, the paradox of choice, which is a book that talks about this aspect that you want to have options. You want to have the perception of freedom that you can do or choose anything that you want. But at some point you get it. If you're overwhelmed with options, then you begin to have this feeling of being overwhelmed, and it's a negative experience. And so this guy talks about in the very beginning of the book going into a store to look for jeans, and the person saying, "Well, do you want tapered leg, or do you want we want this type of, you want that type of, And then he said he walked out with the best fitting jeans he'd ever owned in his life, but he felt horrible about it. And I think that's where you're talking about the psychology of, there's a few starter resolutions to get me going, and then you hit the more button, and you're like, oh, good. There's I can choose from all these other things, but you don't feel overwhelmed in the beginning.
Also, you have here many resolutions that share the same aspect ratio. So maybe you can just present aspect ratio and base resolution for this, and you can calculate resolution to show for information to the user what would be 2x and 3x and 4x resolution for this choice.
It's an interesting idea, but I have to say, if I were a brand new mobile developer, I would be confused.
Yeah, that may confuse me, and because I look at these, or I look at something like that, and I think as a brand new user, every single one of these raises a new question for me.
Yeah, I mean, at one point I almost thought iPhone, iPad, just put like those on there.
Yeah, just push the button for the thing that you know how to say.
Yeah, I mean, because most people literally they're going to come here and go, I want to put it on my iPad. Where's the iPad button?
Yeah.
New people like that.
Yeah, and there's an argument for that, right?
You sound like some kind of country bumpkin. I want to put it on my iPad.
Hey, there's a reason that there's a number 1 with cheese. I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah. The whole aspect ratio thing, I totally hear what you're saying. It's just that I feel like I would lose. I'm really targeting as new users and people who don't want to think too much about, like, just want to go in and get it done quick.
Right. Well, you want to be able to get things done quickly, but you also do want to have the option to be able to customize and specify your situation. So I don't think that there's a wrong answer there. I think it's just a matter of, how do you present for both parties?
Yeah, it's a big user interface, situation.
A nightmare.
Yeah, Ed, you are.
You guys see how this, even in the tool now that is like just one tool, just this one decision is like it's like the brain goes, well, there's 10 different ways I could do this. Is there one right one, or do I have to do 12 dozen?
Well, I think what you're doing there is you're solely making the decisions that usually a team does, right? A much broader, much more specialized team does.
Yeah. I'm also faced with that problem that I'm just one guy and me, myself, and I.
Right. Which in that case is the point where you just have to sort of call it, right? You have to say, okay, I think this is the simplest approach. I've gotten feedback, and I'm just going to roll with this.
That's where I'm going with this. Yeah. It's the approach that I choose, and then I'm going to choose it. That's it. Out the door. You know what's going to happen? The users are going to vote. The users will vote.
Yeah, I was going to say the good thing is that it sounds like you've gotten enough feedback at this point to help you make those types of decisions. So you're not making them on your own, but you do have to put something out there to get the feedback.
Yep. So I don't want to sound as if I'm not appreciative to anybody on anybody's opinions. That might have come across that way. So I appreciate all of you guys' input. Thank you.
Look. Let's get down to it. As long as next week you come here and tell me that I had good ideas that helped you.
That's all you care about.
That I don't remember, but I can take credit for it. That's all that really matters.
Yeah. Kudos to you, Charles. You're the king, man.
Kudos to me. All right. You're still sharing your screen there, buddy. So if you could, there you go. And look at you. All right. Well, we have gone much longer than normal, but that's cool. Lots of great material. I will have lots of links in the show notes. So, and I also have to publish Corona Geek After Dark number 21, which is on my to-do list for tomorrow. So I'll get today's show out the door, and then Corona Geek After Dark out the door. And then on Thursday, we'll look for your tool. And then 1 week from then, we'll look for Eat Tools. All right, there you go. That's Corona Geek 184. As you can tell, there's lots of things to talk about. We can't possibly fit it all into one show, but these are some great conversations. It's really the reasons why we host these Corona Geek Hangouts. In the meantime, between these sessions, what you need to do is go to coronalabs.com/blog. Look at everything that's there on the blog. Also go to forums.coronalabs.com and join us in the forums and the discussions that are there. You can get support, you can add to conversations, you can help out fellow developers. It's a great resource. And also go to youtube.com/coronageek. All of the previous Hangouts are there. You can watch all the videos. We have links to resources that we discuss in those YouTube videos. And everything is documented in the show notes. So be sure to check those out as well. Until next time, have a great week and happy coding.